Good morning, everyone. Tina Spalding Trance channel here for our daily Course in Miracles lessons. Today we are doing lesson number 71. Only God's plan for salvation will work. You may not realize that the ego has set up a plan for salvation in opposition to God's. It is this plan in which you believe. Since it is the opposite of God's, you also believe that to accept God's plan in place of the ego's is to be damned. This sounds preposterous, of course, yet after we have considered just what the ego's plan is, perhaps you will realize that, however preposterous it may be, you do believe in it. The ego's plan for salvation centers around holding grievances. It maintains that if someone else spoke or acted differently, if some external circumstance or event were changed, you would be saved. Thus, the source of salvation is constantly perceived as outside of yourself. Each grievance you hold is a declaration and an assertion in which you believe that says, if this were different, I would be saved. The change of mind necessary for salvation is thus demanded of everyone and everything except yourself. Oh, that's good. The role assigned to your mind in this plan, then, is simply to determine what other than itself must change if you are to be saved. According to this insane plan, any perceived source of salvation is acceptable, provided that it will not work. This ensures that the fruitless search will continue, for the illusion persists that, although this hope has always failed, there is still grounds for hope in other places and in other things. Another person will yet serve better. Another situation will yet offer success. Such is the ego's plan for your salvation. Surely you can see how it is in strict accord with the ego's basic doctrine. Seek but do not find. For what could more surely guarantee that you will not find salvation than to channelize all your efforts in searching for it where it is not? God's plan for salvation works simply because by following his direction you seek for salvation where it is. But if you are to succeed as God promises you will, you must be willing to seek there only. Otherwise your purpose is divided and you will attempt to follow two plans for salvation that are diametrically opposed in all ways. The result can only bring confusion, misery, and a deep sense of failure and despair. How can you escape all this? Very simply, the idea for today is the answer. Only God's plan for salvation will work. There can be no real conflict about this because there is no possible alternative to God's plan that will save you. His is the only plan that is certain in its outcome. His is the only plan that must succeed. Let us practice recognizing this certainty today, and let us rejoice that there is an answer to what seems to be a conflict with no resolution possible. All things are possible to God. Salvation must be yours because of his plan, which cannot fail. Begin the 2 longer practice periods today by thinking about today's idea and realizing that it contains 2 parts, each making equal contribution to the whole. God's plan for your salvation will work, and other plans will not. Do not allow yourself to become depressed or angry at the second part. It is inherent in the first. And in the first is your full release from all your own insane attempts and mad proposals to free yourself. They have led to depression and anger, but God's plan will succeed. It will lead to release and joy. Remembering this, let us devote the remainder of the extended practice periods to asking God to reveal his plan to us. Ask him very specifically, what would you have me do? Where would you have me go? What would you have me say, and to whom? Give him full charge of the rest of the practice period and let him tell you what needs to be done by you in his plan for your salvation. He will answer in proportion to your willingness to hear his voice. Refuse not to hear. The very fact that you are doing the exercises proves that you have some willingness to listen. This is enough to establish your claim to God's answer. In the shorter practice periods, tell yourself often that God's plan for salvation and only His will work. Be alert to all temptation to hold grievances today and respond to them with this form of today's idea. Holding grievances is the opposite of God's plan for salvation, and only His plan will work. Try to remember today's idea some 6 or 7 times an hour. There could be no better way to spend a half a minute or less than to remember the source of your salvation and to see it where it is. That is lesson number 71. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Let's see what Jesus has to say today. You are blessed beings indeed. I am that one that you know as Jesus, and what wonderful, wonderful words these are, to realize that chasing your tail around the planet year after year, decade after decade, is no longer going to appeal to you. It is no longer going to tempt you. Temptation, often in your society's definition, is seen as evil, is seen as dirty, is seen as unholy in some way. But what we want you to understand is that you have, in your separation from all that is, in your separation from love, you have placed your own temptations in the world, and that, dear ones, is why they appeal to you so. They are not placed there by the devil. The devil is a physiological fantasy mythology figure that has been invented to separate you from the knowledge that you are the designer of your own temptations. You are the designer of your own temptations, and that is why they seem to be irresistible. We want to go into this idea of desire and temptation a little bit in this lesson, because it's very important that you understand that it is in following your desires and your passions and your interests. All of these things are not the same. There are deep-seated passions within your mind that are things that you want to deepen your knowledge of in this world. It could be music, it could be art, it could be cooking, it could be anything. But you know what it is, that thing that you always love to do, that thing that's always interesting to you. Even if you're not doing it as a job, you think, I would love to be able to work at that full time. And then there are other things. There are things that are in a more superficial part of your ego consciousness, the part of your mind that is separated from guidance, the part of your mind that is in opposition to God's plan, and that may be your love of chocolate cake, that may be your love of promiscuous sex, that could be your love of drugs. And these things are not the same. Often you hear that, well, you cannot follow your desires, otherwise you would just be all over the map. But there is a difference between deep-seated interest and passion about a subject and learning or creating, and that superficial pleasure-seeking activity of the ego. And we want you to differentiate between those two things now, because if you believe that to do as you feel drawn to do is evil, then you will not live a happy life. You will not be able to pursue that purpose that you came here to fulfill. You will see it as a temptation of the devil, as evil in some way. So when you have a feeling to do something, stop for a moment and ask, is this contributing to the overall health of my life? And is this something that has always been with me and always brought a smile to my face? Or is this some distraction? Is this some temporary band-aid on a negative feeling that I'm having, and to go and drink a beer or buy a pair of boots is going to make me feel better temporarily? Those are the ones that we want you to look at. Those are the ones that we want you to take a break from or even postpone. If you want to go shopping and shopping is your thing, is the way you make yourself feel better, tell yourself you can go shopping tomorrow. But today that you are going to look at why you want to go. What is it in you that is causing the agitation? What is it in you that is causing that feeling? I have to soothe myself. It is so important for you to understand that constantly soothing yourself is not beneficent to your spiritual and consciousness evolution. You must be willing to sit once in a while with your discomfort and ask the question, what am I trying to tempt myself with here? What am I trying to hide from myself? So your temptations are yours. They are your idols, and they will fall. We are happy to tell you that. Your idols will fall, and you will come into alignment with truth. I am that one that you know as Jesus, and we will speak to you again tomorrow. Alrighty. Those idols. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.